Hey guys and ladies, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a list video. Believe it or not, it is a top 10. And the reason it's a top 10 is I just don't have that many designers to do a list like this about. I did a powerful vintage fragrance list on the channel recently. You can check that out. And I did a powerful niche fragrance video. You can check that out. So this is going to be top 10 designers that wear very powerful on me. Some of the heavier, longer lasting designers on my skin. And I really had to dig through the collection to find some of these. And maybe I cheated once or twice, but close enough for government work. So first I want to talk about scent of the day. And today I wore Equipage, which I came down with a little bit of a cold. So halfway through the day, it was like my nose just kind of stopped up and I couldn't smell anything. Still can't really smell anything. That's why we're doing a little bit of a cop-out list video instead of a late night insight review or something like that. But Equipage is a 1970 release. It was the very first Hermes fragrance that was specifically targeted towards men. Eau de Hermes, even though many men love it more than women, I think, it was technically, I think, a unisex release when it came out. It was actually meant to spray the inside of the Hermes bag. So if you bought like a Birkin bag or something, Kelly Kalesh bag or whatever it was, you could spray the inside of it and it was supposed to re-give it that brand new bag smell. That was the idea with Eau de Hermes. And so they almost didn't give it a gender. I think it was just kind of unisex or whatever. But Equipage was the first masculine targeted Hermes release from 1970. And we had Edmond Runitska make Eau de Hermes, and we had Guy Robert make Equipage. And I'll tell you what, it's growing on me. It's never going to catch up to Eau de Hermes or Bel Ami for that matter. Bel Ami is my favorite Hermes fragrance, but it's really grown on me. The way that dry, desiccated spiciness and the strange citruses that almost feel like they're a decade or two in the past. Even though this is 1970, the citruses here feel like they come from the 50s or 60s. Very reserved style citruses, very serious citruses, you know? And that's why I think some people call this old manish, like it has an old man feel. But I'll tell you what, today while wearing it, I really, really came to appreciate the carnation in this. The carnation note in this is absolutely stunning. It really gives off so many facets of the carnation that I love. It's slightly green. You know, it gives off floral touches. There's other florals in here as well, like lily of the valley and jasmine. And the cinnamon and the pine, you know, give it a little bit of that outdoorsy feel that Hermes is so known for. And it dries down with a lot of oak moss and musk, vetiver, patchouli, tonka bean, vanilla. And I get this slight leather accord late into the dry down, but it's a very brown, very 1970s leather. It really feels like the cap. You know, the leather feels like the cap of Equipage. But if you've ever seen the advertisements for Equipage, it was like a bunch of guys on a row ship, you know, like a Olympic style row ship, rowing in tandem as a team. And I think I might even have the packaging to my very early bottle of Equipage from the 80s. I think this bottle was from, I can't remember, with the wheel, the old school sort of wheel on the top, but I will review this one of these days. But yes, I actually finished off my bottle of Equipage that somebody very kindly gifted to me. So that was my scent of the day. Okay, so first we're going to do a quick unboxing here. Just very quickly, somebody very kindly sent me these because I just recently reviewed a fragrance from the house of Bois 1920 within the last week or so. And it was called Vetiver Ambrato, and I really enjoyed that fragrance. And they mentioned that there is a house that the perfumer, Enzo Gardoni, I believe his name is. Let me look it up real quick. Vetiver Ambrato. His name is Enzo Gallardi. Excuse me. What did I say? Gardoni? Gallardi. And he actually founded a house along with Bois 1920, and it was called Profumo dei Firenze. And this person very kindly reached out and said, hey man, I want to send you some of these Profumo dei Firenzes, because they were like, the new stuff is but the old stuff that he did originally when the house was founded is really good, and you should get your nose on it. So once I can smell again, I will do just that. And I think these may have leaked everywhere. They definitely leaked. They definitely leaked. Let's see if they leaked everywhere. Well, there's still enough juice for me to at least get to know them. But yes, this one leaked the most. Okay, let me pull these out here and touch them up so they don't get their juices everywhere. So they're all from the house of Profumo dei Firenze, which I've actually never smelled anything or talked about anything from that house on the channel. The first one is called Cinquantaquattro, which is discontinued. It actually came out in 2010, and it's supposed to be a very fresh citrus. I don't know why I'm smelling. I can't smell shit. But it's Calabrian bergamot, orange, Sicilian lemon, yellow tangerine with some yellow rose. Interesting note, yellow rose, jasmine, petit grain, rosemary, atlas cedar, and Indian white tea. Again, Enzo Gallardi is the perfumer. The one that leaked was the... Actually, this one's from a different house. It's called Lanvin Spanish Geranium. Spanish Geranium. 1925 release. Wow. Marie Zed is the perfumer. Never heard of this one. But I will put it on the decant list. And then we've got another Profumo dei Firenze, Terra Rosa. Terra Rosa. Terra Rosa. Again, a 2010 release. Again, a discontinued version from Profumo dei Firenze. Calabrian bergamot, orange, Tunisian neroli, Indonesian nutmeg, Polynesian ylang ylang, Tuscan cypress, Haitian vetiver, and Java vetiver. Sounds great. Sounds great. I love vetiver base heavy scents now, so I'm excited to try this one and excited to get to know this brand, this Profumo dei Firenze brand. Okay, so let's do the top 10, unranked by the way, just powerful designer fragrances from my collection. I'm counting Guerlain as a designer, just FYI, by the way. Some people say Guerlain's niche. I'm counting them as a designer. I'm not including anything from their L'Art and La Matière. I would consider that their niche line. And I am including a Tom Ford, but not a private blend. I included some Tom Ford private blends in the niche line. This is from the designer line Tom Ford. So I have been cognizant of some of that. But first we're going to start with Dior. And we're going to start with the Dior designer line. And obviously Dior, you're going to see them again. I'm going to do one final powerful fragrance video. It's going to be on women's fragrances in my collection that are very powerful. And you will see a Dior in there, I promise. But there's 2 Diors that make this list for me. 2 Diors and 2 Guerlains. And the first one is called Dior Homme Intense. And this originally actually came out in 2007. I've never smelled the original 2007 version. The original Dior Homme came out in 2005. But then 2007, they did a Dior Homme Intense. And then in 2011, François Demachy reformulated it into the most popular version of it, which is Florentine Iris Absolute, Ecuadorian Ambrette Seed, and Virginia Cedar. And this gives off that cosmetic makeup-y iris everybody talks about. I am torn on which one I like more. The Intense, this is a, I think this is a 2000 and, I think this is a 2013 bottle, if I'm not mistaken. I think the 3 on the front of that batch code right there signals it's a 2013. It may be a 2014. It may be the 4 at the end. But either way, it's a 13 or 14 bottle. So it sits firmly in the 2011 reformulation version. And so I will review this one of these days. But Dior Homme Intense comes in at number 1 by François Demachy. Sticking with François Demachy, and definitely the stronger of the 2. Dior Homme Intense is strong, but this is one of the strongest designers. Actually, when I thought about strong designers, there were 2 fragrances that came to mind. I'll tell you what those 2 are when we get to the second one. But this one is the very first one that came to mind. This is Dior Homme Parfum. And this is the older version that came in a 75 ml. They now make them in 100 ml. Some people claim they've been reformulated. I have no clue. I've never smelled the 100 ml bottles. But this is sort of Florentine Iris Absolute, Ecuadorian Ambrette Seed, and actually, sorry, Leather, Florentine Iris, and Ceylonese Sandalwood is what is Dior Homme Parfum. And some people say there is an oud note that goes with the leather. There's definitely an oud accord. They don't claim there's an oud note in here, but I could totally see some heavier molecules like an oud note really weighing this down. And the leather is one of the biggest things. The leather is one of the biggest things in Dior Homme Parfum that you don't get from the Intense. I have really fallen in love with the Parfum. You can see there's a pretty good dent in this bottle, and you don't need much. I mean, if you really want people to know you're around, like if you went to a club or something and you were going to wear a fragrance where you wanted everyone to pay attention to you, and it's modern and it's something a lot of, you know, folks will associate with modernity and all that stuff, and, you know, that kind of thing, this is the fragrance that I would consider wearing, because it absolutely projects like a monster. Everyone in the club will smell you, especially if you go heavy and go a couple here and put some on your shirt. I mean, that's it. You're done. You're gonna own everybody around you. They'll all be smelling Dior Homme Parfum. And it is funny to me how this kind of became a little bit of a hype beast, but I could see why. I could completely see why. And the ingredients are extremely high class for a designer line. Dior did an amazing job on the Intense and the Parfum. So, starting out with two Diors, number 1, number 2. Number 3 is a Jacques Bogart. I'm including them in the designer line, but this is called One Man Show Oud Edition. And by the way, these Jacques Bogart scents are absolutely beast mode. In my vintage powerful fragrance video that I did, I talked about Furio, and Furio is stripping paint off of the walls, just one of the most intense and tenacious fragrances I've ever smelled in my life. And One Man Show Oud Edition, while it's not Furio level of power, it is an extremely powerful scent. And Thomas from Early Greek is what made me buy this, because he said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you want an oud accord that doesn't fuck around. Like, you want one that just goes, here is an oud accord, and just presents it to you. This is the fragrance. It's almost like, oh, you want an oud, do you? Well, I've got something for you. And so One Man Show Oud Edition is a $20 fragrance that smells like a $100 or $200 fragrance to me. It actually reminds me of the Oud Accord in Leather Oud by Dior, which this is from their high-end Privé line, or, you know, it was Maison Christian Dior, now it's Dior Privé or whatever. But Leather Oud is sort of in the category, if you will. I can't smell shit. I don't know why I keep trying to smell them. But yes, One Man Show Oud Edition is a cheapie, and also an amazingly long-lasting and powerful fragrance for 20 bucks. I don't know how Jacques Bogart does it, by the way. I have no clue how they make money. Honestly, at these prices, it's crazy to me. But I really am a fan of the house. And it is a little bit scratchy up front, that Oud Accord. But they've used red thyme, galbanum, bergamot, oud, spices, geranium, papyrus. So there is going to be that smokiness which you get from Leather Oud, patchouli and leather. Obviously, it's not one for one. You don't see the honey in here. But it's a good replacement, or not a replacement, maybe like a good starter for someone who wants to go down this path, but they don't want to drop 300 bucks on Leather Oud. You could easily go with One Man Show Oud Edition to begin with. Okay, so that was number 3. Number 4 is we're going to do 2 Guerlains back to back. One from the Middle Eastern range, and many of these Middle Eastern ranges could be included in this list, by the way. So, you know, I could have included a handful more than just this one, but I wanted some diversification. So the one that I went with, the first one that comes to mind when I think about most powerful Guerlain Middle Eastern range is Cuir Intense. And Cuir Intense is basically exactly what it says. It's intense leather. I love the osmanthus note that's used in here. You know, this very realistic and peachy / suede-like osmanthus that feels very full-bodied, you know. It feels natural, but it feels very full-bodied. Unfortunately, that's one of the only things that feels natural about this fragrance. It's a very synthetic smelling composition, and yet I still love it. I love the way that the leather and the tobacco and sandalwood and Virginia cedar and musk kind of comes together in Cuir Intense, but it is a very synthetic feeling composition to me. you know, that osmanthus, some people say, can give them like this balloon, you know, like feeling like blowing up a balloon. And I know exactly what they mean, but it's very leathery, very spicy, very smoky, slightly woody, and has this big oriental feel to it. But probably, in my opinion, one of the strongest from the from this particular Middle Eastern line, which I always forget the name. But yes, I am a fan of Cuir, but you definitely have to like intense leather scents. If you like some of the leathers from the 80s, for example, this may be one for you to try. Okay, so next on the list, I had to pick one from Guerlain's actual designer line, which is L'Homme. And by the way, I'm sticking all with the men's scents because if I didn't mention, I'm going to do a women's version of this. I'm going to do a powerful women's fragrance version where you'll see the poisons and the opiums and all that stuff. But this one is called L'Homme Ideal Extreme. So this is the extreme version of L'Homme Ideal. It originally came in a bottle with this red cap. Now they've changed it to black because Guerlain. Why? Because Guerlain. It makes perfect sense. They love changing packaging and all that stuff. And so now there's like this silver gunmetal thing here instead of red on the front, but the bottle's still the same. And so the extreme, basically, again, no clue why I'm trying to smell, but the extreme basically takes the L'Homme Ideal almond kind of DNA and mixes it here with heliotrope, which adds a little bit of that pudginess, a little bit of that gumminess. You know, imagine going to the dentist and having a mold made of your tooth and pulling it out and the mold sticks. That's how the heliotrope feels in here, with some cinnamon for warmth and plum. Plum is one of the stars of the show, and tobacco. So imagine plum, tobacco, leather, patchouli, cedar. And so it is a little bit sweet because it's a slightly sweetened tobacco, and they've definitely used some vanilla in here that's not listed in the note listing. But the plum used here is an expert plum. For a designer line, this is a beautiful, beautiful fragrance. Maybe one of the lighter on the list, but still wears very, very powerful and heavy on me. So L'Homme Ideal Extreme from 2020. Okay, next on the list, we've got number 6. And number 6 is a Tom Ford. And if you can guess, probably the one of the few Tom Fords from the designer line. I probably also could have included another Tom Ford, which I debated on, but it is discontinued and harder to find, so I decided to try to include one that was a little easier to find, and this is called Ombre Leather. So obviously Ombre Leather was actually originally in a private blend in 2016, so it was in a private blend bottle. Then in 2018, they released Ombre Leather Eau de Parfum. I think a couple years later, they released Ombre Leather Parfum, because, of course, Tom Ford. And so this is jasmine sambac, cardamom, saffron, black leather, patchouli, vetiver, amber, white moss. Sonia Constant from Givaudan is the perfumer. And if you like Tuscan leather, just imagine more of a designer version of Tuscan leather, if you will, called Ombre Leather in their designer line. You can usually find these at Sephora's or any place like that. So yes, Ombre Leather. I actually enjoy this. I like this. For what it is, for a designer name like that, it's good stuff. So number 6, Ombre Leather. Number 7. Number 7 is one of the most powerful, earthy, smoky, inky vetivers on the planet. And you probably, if you're a big vetiver lover, you know exactly where I'm going with this. This is Encre Noire, which literally translates to black ink. One of the best names and bottle combinations, and again, price point. Speaking of cheapies, I mean, you can get this for 30 bucks, you can get this for 20 bucks. So good value for money in this designer list, if you will. But Encre Noire is earthy, woody, inky, damp, great for rainy days. Nathalie Lorson's used vetiveryl acetate and cypress, which vetiveryl acetate is probably one of the most used ingredient in the whole perfumer's palette. So it comes across as very green, but also very smoky. The cypress adds a little bit of this medicinal facet to it. Bourbon vetiver and Haitian vetiver were used combined. And Nathalie Lorson uses this sort of smoothing cashmere wood and musk in the base. But this stuff just lasts forever. It goes on and on and on and on. And I love Encre Noire. I also probably could have included Encre Noire à l'extrême. But again, I tried to show some diversification in this. And with me not being able to smell, we are stopping at 10 fragrances today. We're not going to have a Ram 50 fragrance list today, so we're stopping at 10. So Encre Noire comes in at number 7. Number 8 is going to be a Thierry Mugler fragrance, and one of the final remaining Thierry Mugler fragrances that has not been discontinued by L'Oreal, although in what shape is it in? I don't know what the modern Amen is like. I actually have a vintage bottle here. Well, I guess I should tell you the fragrance first. It's Amen. And I actually have a vintage version here, which is called Angel Men. But even the Amen versions, when it was Mugler, I would say go for, or Thierry Mugler. Once it switched to Mugler, that's when I started to get a little bit, it's kind of a good demarcation line. I think it switched right before L'Oreal purchased them, but this is a great example of a gourmand style fragrance that I absolutely love. Probably one of the best designer patchoulis in the game. Lavender, bergamot, coriander, peppermint, caramel, patchouli, cedarwood, honey, lily of the valley, jasmine, coffee, tonka bean, amber, benzoin, musk, vanilla, sandalwood, and styrax. It's got everything. It goes everywhere. It has a little bit of this tar note some people talk about. The vintage is, I mean, just one of the most powerful and tenacious fragrances marketed for men of all time. And, you know, it's sad to see what they did with all the flankers like Pure Havana and Pure Chili and all that good stuff, right? A taste of fragrance is technically what Pure Chili is called, but everyone calls it Pure Chili. You know, those flankers were amazing. Pure Tonka, sad to see L'Oreal discontinue them all. But rumor is there is a new release coming out called Phantasm by Amen and for 2024. I've never smelled it. I would love to smell it, but I've never smelled it. I don't know if that's a limited thing or I don't know what's going on, but I'm glad L'Oreal is now doing Amen flankers again. But the original Amen definitely deserves to be on a powerful designer fragrance list, even though it's technically before 2000, so you could consider it vintage, but it made its way to the designer list. Okay, 2 left. And this is the second one that came to mind instantly when I thought about strong designers. The first was Dior Homme Parfum, powerful designers. And the second was Gucci Guilty Absolute, which I reviewed on the channel. There is a full review of Gucci Guilty Absolute if you are interested in hearing about it. I did talk a little bit about the similarity with Opus 11. They both have that wood leather note, which apparently was a restricted note that only certain perfumers could use. One of those perfumers was Alberto Morillas, and another one was Pierre Negrin. And they were kind of going back and forth. Pierre Negrin did Opus 11, and Alberto Morillas did Gucci Guilty Absolute. And so you can go check out my review of this. I talked a little bit about the hospital aspect, the Band-Aid side of things, all that good stuff. The patchouli and vetiver, cypress, and a little bit of that leather coming together. Very leathery, very woody, slightly smoky. Just an amazing designer. It doesn't belong in the Gucci Guilty bottle, I'll tell you that. This should have been a standalone fragrance, and they should never have discontinued it. Someone was telling me that they brought it back. It still says it was last marketed by Coty on Parfumo, so no sign of it being brought back on Parfumo. But I've had multiple people say, where is your fragrance made? And I will say, Spain. I think it said Spain. Yeah, made in Spain. And they were saying, good, that's what you want, because the new ones that are made in the UK suck. And I was like, what? There's new ones? I don't know. But a bunch of people have been telling me that, so maybe it's true. Maybe it's just old stock. I have no clue. But yes, Gucci Guilty Absolute is absolutely amazing, according to me. And finally, that leaves number 10, which we started with Dior Homme, a flanker of Dior Homme. We're going to end with a flanker of Valentino Uomo called Valentino Uomo Intense. And this is a fragrance that does not get very much talk on Channel Ram, I can tell you that. I had to dig this out of the deepest depths of the collection. But this is the original version of Valentino Uomo from 2016. They have since changed it. Actually, they discontinued this version and they put out a new version a couple years ago that has like a spiked collar, and some people say it's different. It definitely is different because they discontinued it and put out a new one. So there was some sort of change, and not just in the packaging. But many people say the smell is still very good on the new one, that it's equally nice. I don't know, I've never smelled it, but I can tell you that this one gives off a big chocolatey Tonka vanilla thing going on, slightly powdery, slightly leathery, with that beautiful iris that is playing off of that Dior Homme style of fragrance. And so yes, I'm a fan. I'm actually a fan of this, believe it or not. Even though it's very, very sweet, I like it. I like this because I'm a big iris lover, and I like the way the iris is done in Dior Homme, and I like the way the iris is done here. I'm happy to have this. I will talk about this on the channel one of these days, and I think I have a sample of the original Valentino Uomo, so we could do a Valentino Uomo Intense maybe day or two back to back. But yes, that is my top 10 designer powerful fragrances from my collection. You're not going to find many of these videos on Channel Ram, so soak these in. But let me know what your favorites are. Let me know if there's some designers that should have been in the list that I did not include. As always, I appreciate everybody watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, all the stuff you guys do. It's a pleasure to do these videos for you guys. We are coming up on 9,000 subscribers, which I cannot wait for. So we'll see. Maybe we'll do we will do a special video for 9,000 subs. But thanks to everyone who supports me. And as always, it's a pleasure. Cheers, guys. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.